Hi, my name is Devondra Banks, and this is my presentation, Toyin Odutola, Exploring Visual Art Through Race and Identity. Toyin Odutola is a Nigerian-born artist who is really popular for exploring different types of materials to use to paint with and draw with, but she is most popular and most well known for her charcoal and black ink contrast art. This art appears to be completely black, but if you look closely, there are a lot of images embedded in it. She's also very popular for the ways that she explores race and power and storytelling and also migration in her art. She is a graduate of California College, where she got her bachelor's in fine arts, and she's also a graduate of University of Tennessee, where she received her master's in fine arts. The Wall of Ambassadors is a portrait that Toyin Odutola drew, and this one portrait is a part of a series of other portraits where she depicts the private lives of this aristocrat Nigerian family, and it's an imaginary family. They don't actually exist, but just the ideas and the perceptions that we have of Black people. In my opinion, I feel that Miss Odutola likes to debunk all of that through her art, with drawing and imagining Black people in this aristocrat society, and basically exhibiting things that debunk theories about the socioeconomic status of Blacks, the power of Blacks, the identity of Blacks, identity that has been lost throughout the years, and identity realized. She also likes to explore themes about migration and also dislocation of Blacks. And so the Wall of Ambassadors is just one of those portraits that is part of an entire series, and you'll see more of those in this presentation. Representatives of State is another portrait that is a part of the whole series that I just mentioned. And if you look here, there are 4 statuesque women who are standing in a very commanding position. And this is one of my actual favorites of that collection. And also, I would like to bring attention to the different style and the different shades of these Black women. I think that's a beautiful depiction of the women in Black culture. This is Between the Margins. This portrait is also a part of the series that I mentioned, and this picture was created in 2017. It's created with charcoal along with some pastels on a black canvas. And so this is typical Toyin Odutola, and her themes that she likes to explore. And just also, I like to bring attention to one thing that I discovered about her art and that I read about through research, is that she likes to do very, very interesting, detailed lines in the skin of the Black people who she draws and who she depicts. And she believes that the lines and the design that she embeds in the skin of the character that she is creating, it tells a story. And so I thought that that was very beautiful. This is years later, her scarf. This is also, I believe, like one of those portraits that she has created where it is identity realized, power realized. The exact story about this portrait is not mentioned, but just in my observation of it, it's almost as if a woman has left her scarf behind, and there's a man sitting there, a Black man sitting there, and he's holding it. And it's kind of like realizing that you've left something behind and you go back to get it, whatever that looks like, just kind of like a revisitation of something misplaced or something lost from your life. And so that was part of my depiction of it. Winter Dispatch is a beautiful portrait, also a part of the same series. And if you pay close attention to the line detail in the skin of the hands in this picture, and just also some of the interior details surrounding it, it is very beautiful. I feel that it speaks to the socioeconomic status of the resilience of Blacks. There's so much that we have lost throughout history, but her depiction of Black people in her portraits is always very classy, very powerful, very statuesque, very commanding. And this simple portrait of hands writing on stationery is no different. The Bride is also one of my favorites. This was created in 2016, also using charcoal and pastels and chalk, and this is a very modernized depiction of a bride. Now, I will say that I do not take this in literal sense as like a bride, like getting married to a groom, but just a woman who is in the process of marrying herself to something bigger, greater. The bride is pictured, but she's not pictured, you know, in actual, in a wedding setting, but definitely in something that would present her as being a bride. And so that was what I got from the art, is that it's a Black woman in the state of marrying herself to something, but not necessarily to a partner. Eastern Entrance. I like this portrait. It was created in 2016, also using a lot of charcoal and pastels. And this one that Toyin Odutola pictured, it depicts a little boy, you know, just kind of hanging out in some entrance in the home. And we know that if a home has optional entrances, it must be a nice home. And so, like I said, this is one thing that I enjoy about her art. It's just seeing Black people living in luxury, living in comfort, and not looking seemingly distressed or in poverty. And so, again, another thing I enjoy about her art, especially seeing a child, a Black child, also in that state. This portrait is one that she's very popular for. As you can see, it is charcoal. It's called An Unlearning. And if you look closely as possible, it is the charcoal on canvas, but then there's also Black ink that is used. And so this is one of those illusion type of portraits that she has created, where you have to look very closely and study it in order to grasp the whole of what you see. And so my depiction of it, when I looked at it, was seeing different images embedded inside of different images. And the more you look at it, that's the more visual context you receive. And so at first glance, it looks like one thing. For me, it just looked like a bunch of leaves. But the more I looked at it, the more I studied it, the more I appreciated it, because that's the more I was able to see. And I also feel like that is a connection, an interconnection to the theme of unlearning. The more sometimes we learn about things and take our time and just kind of breathe it all in, is the more we understand and sometimes unlearn what we first thought we perceived. Training for Compatibility. I believe that this is a depiction of women who are supposed to be in this aristocrat type of society, that are supposed to be being taught how to be compatible, as sometimes in society women are. We're taught to look a certain way, act a certain way. And so that's another thing that Toyin Odutola was popular for exploring also, and also debunking gender norms of saying, basically, just because I'm a woman, I don't have to act this way, I don't have to sound this way, you know, and there are no confines for me. And so I really like this powerful depiction that she has illustrated. Heir Apparent is another depiction of a Black man taking a luxurious bath with beautiful art around him. I really enjoy this picture I am always an advocate for Black boy joy, and just seeing Black people living their best life. And to me, this is a depiction of that. The second hour is a very strong depiction. If you look at the lines in the skin in the back of this woman's neck and the back of her shoulders, it exudes strength, it exudes power, and it's just beautiful to look at. It's just a Black woman gazing out of a window at peace, or either in contemplative, retrospective, just, thinking, but just in a stance of stillness. But then also you're able to see the strength and the power and the story and the lines in her neck and her shoulders and back. I really, really love this photo. The privilege placement. If you look at the interior around here, and just all you see is a reflection of this person. You don't see the actual person, you just see the reflection. Another powerful depiction and illustration from Toyin Odutola of symbolism and how Black people identify themselves. This is one of those examples of how she explores identity in her art. The trap vow is one that I did not have much understanding about, but it is beautiful nonetheless. I do plan to do more research on this and hopefully maybe see this exhibit in person. However, it is usually not shown outside of the country, outside of Nigeria, and so I'll have to find my way to get around to seeing it, because I would like to explore more about the trap vow and absolutely some of her other art that she has used with charcoal and the black ink, the black charcoal and black ink contrast. And so this is a beautiful depiction of another Black woman. I am not sure about the title connection to the illustration, but again, it is beautiful nonetheless. And so that is my presentation. I really have enjoyed getting to know more about Toyin Odutola. I didn't know who she was before I took on the responsibility of completing this assignment, but I'm so glad that I did. She is an amazing artist. Again, she does a lot of self-portraits, but she does not consider herself as a portraitist, but she really, really does illustrate some beautiful portraits and depictions of Black people at their best. Thank you. So now we're open for questions. One of the questions I received is, do I believe that the artist, Toyin Odutola, is kind of embedding a representation of herself in her art? And absolutely, I believe that as an artist, I think we start with self first, with inserting ourselves and expressing and exhibiting empathy, and just kind of putting our feet in the shoes of others and our ancestors and other members of our culture, and, exploring that. Again, she explores power, she explores identity, and things of migration and dislocation, and all of that is embedded in the storyline of Blacks. And so I do believe that in some of her art, that she actually sees herself in that, and it actually speaks to her in that way, and that's why she's so able to illustrate so beautifully and so accurately, is that there are parts of her stories embedded in her art. So thank you for that question. The next question was, why do I think that she chose to create an imaginary Nigerian family as opposed to using her own family, since she's from Nigeria? And I will say sometimes, and I can only speak as a Black woman, but sometimes it is easier and it is more fun to illustrate something of the imagination versus reality, especially if your reality is not so fun and not so happy and not so bright and not so colorful. And so sometimes the imagination is the safe space. The imagination is the whimsy. The imagination is, everything that's bright, bold, and beautiful. And sometimes your reality is not, and that's okay. But clearly her imagination is beautifully illustrated in her work. And you know, should she decide, which I really do think that she does use parts of her real life in other series that she has created, but in this specific series that I use most of her art from, I think most of it is built and produced from a place of imagination and whimsy and wonder and what if, or you know, maybe my family didn't grow up an aristocrat family, but this family in my mind did, and that's the beauty of it all.